Week 5 is in the rearview mirror pending Monday Night Football. So today we're going to break down my top 10 waiver ads for Week 6. Some guys that you need to go out and add to make your bad fantasy football teams better. Usually we have a live stream doing this kind of stuff, and then we drop a full video on Tuesday. But Danny's feeling under the weather. It's Canadian Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving to all the lads out there. So we're going to do this a day early. If you guys enjoy, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Now let's get into it. All right, so I'm going to go in order from 10 to 1 of my top waiver ads, talk about how much fab I would spend on these guys, what their ownership percentage is. If you guys need some quarterback and tight end help, these guys just missed the cut of this list. Both Washington Commanders players, Sam Howell and Logan Thomas. Sam Howell's dropping back more than any other passer in the NFL right now and hasn't even gotten his top wide receivers involved yet. Of course, that was to benefit Logan Thomas, who had a big game on Thursday Night Football. He's seen his routes and his targets recently climb up, so he is a decent streaming option. So now let's get into the list itself. We're going to go from 10 to 1. Like I said, Jonathan Mingo, wide receiver of the Carolina Panthers, is number 10 on this list. He relegated Terrace Marshall to the bench, which is definitely promising considering he's a young, ascending rookie wide receiver who's worth stashing at the end of your bench. This is not a guy that you're going to want to plug into your lineup right away, but 5 catches, 48 yards this past week. Also, by far, the most comfortable that he looked, the most comfortable that Bryce Young looked, and also the most aggressive that Bryce Young has been so far this season, because typically we've seen Bryce Young just kind of checking it down, taking what the defense is giving him, and not really pushing the ball downfield, but that's not really what we saw. He posted 3 touchdowns, scored 24 points, so good news for the Panthers offense going forward. Jonathan Mingo was a developmental prospect coming out of Ole Miss, so be patient with him because he's probably not going to be the type of guy that breaks out until, second half of the season if he does. If he has a blow-up game here soon, he is going to be a hot commodity on the waiver wire, so definitely hold on to him to kind of see what happens. At the very least, maybe you'll have a trade chip on your hands. So number 9 on this list is Zay Jones, right now currently rostered in 37% of leagues. I told you guys about Zay Jones last week as a decent stash because I wanted to get ahead of the curve because I figured eventually he was going to make his way back into the waiver wire circuit, because it is really clear that the Jacksonville Jaguars are a 3 wide receiver set base offense, and they want to run this offense through Calvin Ridley, through Christian Kirk, and through Zay Jones. And despite being limited in this game, Zay Jones had 3 receptions, caught a nice touchdown. He worked right back into his old role in this offense, and him being on the field improves the Jacksonville Jaguars as a whole. We saw a pretty decent performance out of them against Buffalo. Travis Etienne got going. Calvin Ridley had a good game. Christian Kirk had, some targets, didn't have a monster game in this one, but the offense as a whole is something that I'm definitely intrigued by. The too many mouths to feed narrative is not really in my vocabulary. I want players who are good, who are on good offenses, and the Jaguars just beat the Buffalo Bills, a team that looked unstoppable for the last couple weeks, and they took them all the way down to the wire. So I definitely like Zay Jones as a decent, deep league flex option going forward. If he's available on your waivers, go pick him up. Luke Musgrave is the next guy that we're going to talk about here. Again, if you need some tight end help, I think he's the premier tight end available right now. He has not played yet in Week 5. They play tonight as I'm recording this on Monday Night Football. Definitely add him before the game if you're watching this on Monday. If you're watching this on Tuesday, add him after the game regardless of what his stat line was. In Weeks 1 to 3, before Musgrave suffered a concussion in Week 4, we saw very, very good usage out of this guy. And we're seeing what Sam Laporta is doing in Detroit, and Luke Musgrave has very comparable usage. You guys can see he's actually running more routes from weeks 1 to 3. He's getting a good, downfield average depth of target, the type of guy that we want on those big plays, kind of like a George Kittle, Kyle Pitts type of archetype as far as the types of targets he gets. He's not going to be the most consistent in the world because they have Christian Watson, they have Jaden Reed, they have Romeo Doubs in that offense. But I do think, with the way Jordan Love is playing right now, Luke Musgrave has a chance to catch some seam balls here and be a very, very popular waiver ad. So I'm trying to get ahead of the curve here. And maybe you guys already know something that I don't because you're watching this on Tuesday, and maybe Musgrave is higher on this list. That definitely wouldn't shock me. But if he has a down performance, he is still a great waiver ad. Number 7 on this list is Chuba Hubbard, who's rostered right now in 32% of leagues. Another week here in Carolina where Chuba Hubbard barely outsnaps Miles Sanders, who's still at high risk for re-injury. In my opinion, you probably can't play either of these guys unless one of them is out of the game or one of them goes down or the usage corrects itself back where Miles Sanders is fully healthy. healthy. Nonetheless, I still think Chuba Hubbard is somebody that you want to stash, because in case Miles Sanders re-aggravates this injury, whether it's in practice or he does it during a game, he'll probably miss a game or two, maybe a couple weeks, maybe even go on IR. And all it would take for Chuba Hubbard is that happening, and he's an RB2 for the remainder of the season, or the remainder of whatever time we get him as the starter. So Chuba Hubbard is definitely a good depth running back to have, especially with bye weeks coming up. He's the type of guy that you can probably roster and hope that you kind of luck into some good productive performances from him here. Number 6 on this list is Elijah Mitchell, who's rostered right now in 35% of leagues. Probably not the type of guy that you want to roster if you're 1-4 or 0-5 or even 2-3 potentially. So this is for all the guys out there that are 5-0 or 4-1, 3-2, and you guys have a ton of depth on your roster. Maybe you guys play in shallow league formats too, and you don't need to start that many players. Let me take you to a hypothetical world where all the starting running backs in the NFL go down with an injury. How high would Elijah Mitchell rank among those starting running backs? Because in my opinion, he's got to be one of the very best handcuffs out there that you can find. And when people get tired of pure handcuffs like Elijah Mitchell, they drop them, right? And that's exactly what's happened so far. And you can snatch him up for nothing, as opposed to, let's say Christian McCaffrey goes down in practice with an injury, then Elijah Mitchell is going to cost you 100% of your fab. So if you have an open bench spot right now, then you can just throw Elijah Mitchell to the end of it. If CMC went down, we all know this guy would be valuable, because that offense is going to produce fantasy production for the running back position no matter who is playing in it, including Jordan Mason, as we saw last night. Mitchell was out in week 4 with a knee injury, so this is not the type of guy that is even healthy right now, and Mason might be a decent stash for the time being, but we're not using Elijah Mitchell for right now. We're stashing him for potentially like week 7 or week 8 or week 10 when Christian McCaffrey eventually gets injured, because we know he's no spring chicken. It's a good process hold. If he's not doing anything for 4 or 5 weeks and you need to pick up somebody for a bye week, then of course you can drop him at that point in time. But do not pick up Elijah Mitchell if you need production. This is a guy that you need to wait and see. Let him ride on your bench. Let him, eat up a bench spot for you if you can afford it, if you have deep benches. So when we get into the top 5, we kick it off with Justice Hill, running back of the Baltimore Ravens, currently rostered in just under 30% of leagues right now. I said it in the running back tier list video, but I was not buying that Gus Edwards was like a 70% opportunity share running back like we saw from him in week 4, because Justice Hill was coming off of a toe injury in that game. And look what happened this week, right? We see Justice Hill out-snaps Gus Edwards straight up. We see that he gets more goal line work, all of the 2-minute drill work. Looks like a guy that you can legitimately pick up off the waiver wire right now and throw into your flex, especially if you guys have a bunch of bye weeks upcoming. This Ravens backfield will probably never truly be anyone's to dominate the touches. It'll probably be like a 55, 60 to 45, 40% snap share split most of the season. But Justice Hill is the most explosive running back in this backfield. He gets the receiving work. He's getting some red zone work. So definitely worth a speculative ad, or a guy that you could potentially use in your flex if you're in a bind this week. So waiver ad number 4, we have Tyjae Spears. Spears has been quite productive on his limited touches this year. He is rostered right now in 30% of leagues, despite recording a better PFF rushing grade than Derrick Henry, averaging a full 2 yards per carry more than Derrick Henry. He has gained a first down or a 10-plus yard breakaway play as many times as Derrick Henry has, despite Derrick Henry having triple his rushing attempts. I'm not saying Derrick Henry will be overtaken in this backfield. I highly doubt that's going to happen, but Spears is one of the very best handcuffs in fantasy right now, and he has a little bit of a standalone role, as we saw this past week. He had a couple targets, he gets into the end zone through the air, and he is averaging one of the highest rushing avoided tackles per attempt in the league. Only really Devon A-Chain has been better on a per touch basis of making people miss. So Tyjae Spears, definitely somebody that you want to keep in mind. Definitely somebody that you want to throw to the end of your bench. He's a better pickup than Elijah Mitchell, who's like a similar projection because he has a standalone role, as I talked about. Number 3 on this list is Emari Demercado. So I don't know if I'm pronouncing that name right, but Arizona Cardinals running back. James Conner suffered what fantasy doctors are speculating to be a multi-week knee sprain or a knee contusion. Emari Demercado was alone in this backfield behind James Conner on Sunday. He had 13 touches. He averaged 5.2 yards per touch on those touches, and he scored a touchdown as well. Keontae Ingram typically is the guy that projects to be the early down banger, but he has been out the past 2 weeks with a neck injury, and it's possible he's the back to own on early downs with Conner out. But Demercado has the pass-catching upside. He has the, health on his side as well, because Keontae Ingram may be limited in his first game back this coming week, if he even is back. So Demercado is a guy that I think you can spend, 15, 20% of your fab budget on if you're desperate for a running back, if you have bye weeks, or if you really, really need wins right now. You could even potentially put more than that down on Demercado. So number 2 waiver ad of the week for me is Josh Downs, wide receiver of the Indianapolis Colts, rostered in under 20% of leagues right now. I would be willing to spend 15, 20, 25%, especially if I'm in a deep PPR league where I need wide receivers. With Anthony Richardson out for a couple games now, we got some reports today that he's going to probably go to IR with an AC joint sprain, which means that Gardner Minshew is going to be starting for the Colts. I think Josh Downs could really be set to break out because he just posted a career-high 97 yards. He still has yet to find the end zone this year, but he's been pretty solid in PPR leagues. Josh Downs was also a prospect that I loved during the draft. I knew he would be a productive NFL slot receiver. I had a similar grade on him than I did to Quentin Johnson and Zay Flowers, especially with the way that Flowers has performed. I thought they were very comparable prospects coming out. Both of those guys were picked in the first round. Josh Downs obviously slides to round 3, but I thought he was a big-time steal for the Indianapolis Colts. With Minshew at quarterback, Josh Downs has a 24.2% target rate. He leads the team in receiving grade on PFF right now. He has the highest yards per route run on the team, including Michael Pittman as well. Great depth breakout wide receiver for those of you guys like me who play in deep leagues where wide receivers come at a premium. Nobody wants to trade away their wide receivers, and you need to start a lot of wide receivers. So 3 wide receivers, 2 flex leagues, or 2 wide receiver, 3 flex leagues. You definitely want to have a lot of wideouts in those type of formats, and Josh Downs is the type of guy that can help fill out your bench. Number 1 waiver ad of the week, so the best waiver ad available. He might not be available in your league because he is currently 43% rostered. But Roschon Johnson, if he's out there, is the number 1 waiver ad of the week, and I don't even think it's particularly close. Foreman, if he's the one that's available and Roschon is not, he would rank 5 on this list right now for me, assuming Roschon is not available in your league. Hubbard is expected to miss multiple weeks with a high ankle sprain that he suffered on Thursday night. Roschon Johnson also got injured on Thursday night. He suffered a concussion in that game as well, but there's a very good chance he'll be back this week. He's got 10 days to recover and clear the protocol. Roschon Johnson is the 22nd graded running back on PFF right now. He's averaging 4.9 yards per carry, and he's one of the only backs in this backfield, especially now with only Foreman and him left, that has 3-down capability. And we saw him carve out that role even before Khalil Herbert's injury. Plus, if you guys followed this channel during the Dynasty offseason, during the NFL draft time, you know I loved Roschon Johnson. I thought he was one of the best prospects in this draft. He has the size, he has the speed, he has the athleticism, he has the 3-down ability, he's elusive. He was a top 5 graded back in this class for me, and through no fault of his own, he was stuck behind Bijan Robinson at Texas. So, in my opinion, we're talking about the next great breakout running back with the Bears' schedule coming up. It is getting very, very easy for them. If you missed out on Devon Achane, if you missed out on Kyron Williams, some of the other great waiver ads so far this year, do not cheap out. If you guys got 30, 40, 50, 60% of your fab available still, I am fine dropping every last dime of it if Roschon Johnson is available on my waiver wire. Like I said, Foreman will probably be involved as well, but 50, 60, 70% of the snaps is right away what I'm expecting from Roschon Johnson. And if he takes this job and runs with it, like I believe he will, it's possible that he never gives it back to Khalil Herbert even when he's healthy. So if he is available, definitely go out and grab him. If you guys enjoyed this video, if you got some value from it, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Also, if you want access to all of our redraft rankings, all of our rest of season rankings, our weekly rankings, matchup charts, and as well, you can check out our new Dynasty Rankings Manifesto fit with positional rankings with updated ages and, keep trade cut analysis in terms of who we would buy based on their current market value, and 2024 rankings. If you guys are interested in the upcoming rookie class, we have early 2024 rankings in our Dynasty Rankings Manifesto. That is now available on our site, flockfantasy.com. Use the promo code FSE for 30% off. An annual subscription will get you 6 months for free, as well as a free Zoom consultation to talk about whatever you want to talk about with myself or with Danny. So rest of season rankings, weekly rankings, dynasty rankings, all that stuff available on flockfantasy.com, especially also too, you get access to our Discord. You get access to us one-on-one. We have a private live stream every Saturday afternoon that you can get access to as well. So if that interests you, check that down below in the link in the pinned comment. But with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.